Some roles, you just need that steady person who is good at their job, works hard, keeps their head down, keeps a positive culture and environment in the workplace. So really focus on having an A team versus focusing on making sure everyone is an A player.
Hello there and welcome to the My Future Business Show. It's great to be back with you. If this is your first time on the show, welcome. And if you have been supporting the My Future Business Show for any length of time, thank you very much for your support and for your feedback. It's wonderful knowing how much the show is making a difference for you. Now, on today's show, I have the pleasure of welcoming founder and CEO of Lateral Solutions, Mr. John Bassford. Welcome to the show, John.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. A pleasure to have you here. Now, you and I are going to be talking about operational mistakes new business owners tend to make and how technology and the gig economy can leverage those resources to run efficient and effective internal operations. Now, there is certainly a lot there to unpack, John, but before we jump into the core of the call, tell us where you're calling in from today.
So I am calling in from Kensington, Maryland, which is just right outside the DC Beltway.
Yes, fantastic. Has that been home for a long time?
So I've been in the DC metro area for about 12 years. I was in Baltimore for a little bit before that, but I was born and raised in central Illinois.
Fantastic. Now, tell me a little bit about life growing up. Can you remember it?
I think so. I don't think I'm that old where I I grew up in a small factory farm town, about 65, 70,000 people when I grew up. Now it's about 55,000. Typical Midwest upbringing. What brought me out here to the East Coast was I came to DC on a family vacation in high school and fell in love with it. So I'm going to move there one day. I ended up spending a semester here in college.
Yep.
Fell more in love with it. And after law school, I got a job offer in Baltimore. I said that's close up to DC for now, and then worked my way down here.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think this is what sets the My Future Business Show apart from many other podcasts, is that I take the time to learn a little bit about you, John. So tell us what else about growing up that you can really remember. Were there any, influential people in your life during those formative years?
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, I think throughout my childhood and early adulthood, I think I've always had a number of different people who influenced me. I wouldn't say, I had that one kind of pinnacle role model across all aspects of my life, but certainly have taken, different aspects from numerous people, from, my home life to society to education, et cetera. And just really, I'd say just took a little bit from every person that I've interacted with and has been in my life and has really helped me grow and succeed.
So as a busy individual, do you get much time to have any downtime for yourself? And if you do, what sort of things do you like doing? Do you have any hobbies or things like that?
I do. Whenever I'm asked something unique about myself, so my coined phrase is always that I'm a powerlifting hockey player who loves Broadway musicals.
Wow.
So I weightlift about 10 hours a week and play hockey once a week. And then my wife and I both enjoy going to the theater, so we try to do that as much as possible as well.
Yeah, wow, I love theatre. Now, tell me a little bit about getting into the zone when weightlifting. Do you ever have mornings where you wake up and you go, I really can't be bothered doing this? And what do you do in terms of resetting your mindset to get into it?
Sure. So I actually kind of split my week. Half the week I work out in the afternoons, half the week I work out in the mornings.
Yep.
So it's one of those things where, morning lifting for me can be a struggle. I am not a morning person.
Neither am I.
But there is something that natural happens with me once I get in the gym. I am someone who, like, the endorphins rush in and I get that natural high. So once I'm in the gym, it's game on.
You're into it. Now, it leads to the obvious question about diet and nutrition. Tell us how you look after yourself in terms of your daily intake.
Sure. So, I try to keep a fairly lean diet, especially throughout the week. Do use supplements, et cetera. Try to keep a fairly high protein diet, low carbs, low fat. I will admit that I probably take a little more time on the weekends to splurge and enjoy what I'm eating instead of eating for nutrition. I do try to keep a pretty healthy diet throughout the week.
Yeah, great feedback. Thank you so very much. Now, I know that you enjoy the theatre. I guess if it's not theatre, is there any time for movies in your world?
Oh, absolutely. I love movies. I subscribe to most of the movie channels and, Amazon, all those type of things as well. and my wife and I and my son as well. We love going to the movies as well.
Hey, given, when we're growing up, many of us have pets. Did you ever have a pet when you were growing up?
A little bit here and there
Yeah, yeah,
growing
yeah.
up. But the interesting thing right now is that my wife watches dogs professionally. So although we
Oh,
don't have any pets, we tend to have dogs in our house anywhere between 2 and 3 weeks out of every month, and
okay.
a variety of different dogs. So we get our fair share of pets that way.
It seems to be a good idea because we have three Rottweilers, and it's like when you become grandparents, it's great to give the children back. I wonder if it's the same thing with dogs.
Absolutely. We have our favorites. Actually, one of our favorites is leaving our house right now as we speak. It's really kind of interesting to see the different personalities and what you like and dislike about a dog. And we're hoping to get one ourselves here in the next year or two.
Yep.
But for now, we're enjoying the dogs that come and go.
You're clearly a person who loves entertainment and going out and about. Do you like to go and listen to music and be in sort of that social environment? Is that something you enjoy?
Oh, absolutely. So in the United States, my favorite music town is Austin.
Ah,
I don't go
yes.
there a whole lot. My wife and I are actually headed to Nashville
Oh,
here in 2 weeks for a training conference for myself, and I'm bringing her along because she's never been to Nashville. But we will absolutely be out listening to live music when we go.
you know what? You're traveling around a lot. You're doing speaking, which I'd love to talk to you about later on. But in all of this, as a human being, as somebody who may enjoy this, do you give yourself permission to have downtime?
Absolutely. Again, I think a lot of times my downtime is usually spent, kind of vegging out from the TV, just relaxing, not thinking about work, not thinking about life. I also do take time to meditate. I
Yep.
try to do it twice a day. So that although it's a little different, kind of downtime, but it really is a great time to just, become present, center myself, and let the worries and struggles of entrepreneurial life kind of fade away and just enjoy the moment.
Well, it's a good segue that you mentioned entrepreneurial life because I remember washing cars was one of my first entrepreneurial exposures. What do you recall about yours?
You know, I'm not quite sure on that, to be honest with you. I'm not. Someone who went to law school. I'm not sure that the entrepreneurial life was really something that I had in my
Planned.
forecast
Yeah.
throughout early years and in college. But it really has served me well. And I think one of the first instances where I really had it set in my mind that I wanted to be an entrepreneur from a consultant aspect was I was working for an organization. I've been trying to get the CEO to do something that I thought was right for the organization, and it just kept falling on deaf ears, deaf ears.
Yep.
Then we hired a consultant who told him exactly what I've been telling him for months, and he followed their advice. I'm like, that's what I need to be doing. And so that actually was my first kind of inkling into, I need to step out of W-2 life and be on my own and be a consultant
Yep.
and kind of have that expertise kind of helmet on my head.
John, that's great feedback. Thank you so very much. Now, I think it's a great, I guess, again, segue into learning a little bit about your former, I guess, educational background and professional background. Would you mind sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to a small Division 3 school in my hometown. Majored in philosophy with a minor in political science. As I mentioned before, I did spend a semester in DC. I actually did a class in Paris as well for a few weeks. So I definitely took advantage of a lot of opportunities that came my way throughout my education. After undergrad, I did immediately go into law school,
Yep.
where I graduated from there. And then from there, again, I mentioned before, I moved up to Baltimore. I ended up going on from there and getting my MBA a couple of years later. But my career actually started in the nonprofit association world.
Oh,
And I am a certified association executive.
yep.
Uh, but how I kind of got into working for startups and working the startup world was my second job. I was the fifth employee hired for a tech trade association that was a startup that worked with startups. So I kind of had this double immersion into the startup world. And so when I went out on consulting, some of my former bosses from there were launching new companies and organizations. And so I helped them launch operations. So that's really how I got my start in the consulting side.
Yeah, we're going to be talking a lot more about that in a moment, John, but I'd love to know, given, I remember leaving college and thinking, I've had enough of learning. Do you think that lifelong learning is important? And is it something that you embrace?
Absolutely. I probably should say that, I've always enjoyed school.
Yep.
For the most part, school has always come fairly easy to me.
Yep.
One exception was law school. That is a totally different beast. But the law school certainly, was an educational experience like none other.
Yep.
And, throughout my professionalism and just personal life, I've always continued to read, to grow. So I absolutely believe in continual personal and professional development through a number of different avenues.
Do you prefer like hardbacks, paperbacks, or audiobooks?
So I prefer paperback. So it's easier to travel with. I
Yep.
tend to underline and take notes in books I read, and so the pen will fit better in it. But it's hard for me to transition to the digital books.
And now I know a lot of people who start off with a law degree or whatever course of education you started with, John, oftentimes never lean back into it or get any value from it. Do you think that there are any elements from all of the qualifications that you have that you are still applying today?
Yeah, so even though I never practiced law and had that traditional law career,
Mm.
uh, running internal operations, certainly I use my law degree on an everyday basis.
Yep.
Whether it is dealing with legal HR issues, contract review, all of those type of things. And certainly, law school is not just about learning the law, but learning how to think like a lawyer, being able to evaluate, being able to analyze. And so I absolutely use those skills every single day.
Yeah, no, I think it's important that everybody knows there's certainly a lot of positive testimonials that have come back that I'm reading through your thinklateral.com website. That's a real credit to you. So later on, we'll be sharing that information. But given all of the services and your experiences in the business world, what's the one thing that you do personally the best?
Sure. I would say that being a jack of all trades, master of none.
Yep.
And why that's important, what I do is, again, overseeing accounting, finance, HR, legal, tech administration, culture, governance, all these different aspects. I really have to know and understand a little bit, maybe more than a little bit, but at least a little bit of every single one of these areas so that I can, see where roadmaps may be coming ahead, be able to strategize, et cetera. So it really is important to have a basic understanding of all these areas. And that's really something that's really helped me stand out in my career.
It's a well-rounded approach, that's for sure and certain. Now, before we shift gears and talk directly about that, I'm wondering, I have a bucket list and I know that it's only half filled. Have you got a bucket list and what would you like to do in your life?
Sure. So let me think here.
There's so much.
Yeah. So I would like to go skydiving. As someone who is
Oh,
a little bit afraid of heights,
oh
nothing
yes.
too severe, but skydiving is on my list. There are a number of places. Travel is a big part of a bucket list for me.
Yep.
Going to Greece, going to Italy, Australia, South Africa, going on an African safari. My next big trip I'm looking at is going to Alaska. It's actually my mom's dream trip, and
Oh,
I promised I would get her there. So travel is a huge part of my bucket list.
dreaming a lot about these things is very important. I know that, I take a lot away from, the classics like Zig Ziglar and all those people that talk about this idea that, if you think it's going to start to become and manifest itself in life. Do you sort of subscribe to that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say certainly on the professional and in personal development and in aspects of my life that I want to achieve. When
Yeah.
I am meditating, I think about the amount of money that I want to have and earn, and the different ways I could do that through my business and manifest my dream home. My wife and I have a street picked out that's doing a lot of new construction development, and we've kind of honed in on this street and where we want to live. And
Beautiful.
so, that's our goal is to be, in the process of building a home or purchasing a home that's been built in the next 12 months. So I
Yeah.
certainly, bring all of that into my meditation and manifestation. And the secret is really to try to envision yourself as already being in that moment, right? That's
Yeah.
what a lot of mindfulness people teach is to pretend you're already there. and believe it and have those feelings, and it helps manifest those aspects.
That's great feedback. Thank you very much, John. Now, given your background in philosophy with your degree and all the experiences that you have, I have a two-part question for you, if you don't mind. And what's your life philosophy? You know, your beliefs, concepts, and attitude towards life in general.
Sure. So, that is a tricky one.
Mm.
As someone who grew up in the Midwest
Yep.
in a very Christian biblical environment, and someone who began to challenge that and went on to become a philosophy major who I did my senior thesis on Nietzsche and his view God is dead and what that means. Um, what I'm getting to with that is one of my life philosophies is that life is all about perspectives.
Yep.
There are very few truths, as we tend to translate a lot of opinions that we have into being truth, right, with a capital T.
Yep.
And that's one aspect of my philosophy of life is really just if we can just learn to see things as perspectives and lack of truths, it really allows us to open up ourselves to other ideas, other opinions, and be able to relate to people a lot better than what we currently do. And I certainly take that throughout my professional career, my personal life. But that's a big aspect of my belief system.
Thank you again. Now, if life is a mirror and we reflect the five people that we hang around, how important is to choose a good circle of people to be around in your life?
No, absolutely. I'd say in my life, I have some great people that fit a lot of different buckets for me.
Yep.
I have the people who are just constant love and support, right? I think everyone needs those, but I also have those best friends and those mentors in my life that challenge me. When they hear about my crazy new entrepreneurial endeavor, they
Yep.
push back and say, "You're crazy. Have you done this and that? What are you thinking? That's never going to work."
Yep.
You
Yep.
can ignore them, but it's good to have that pushback, right? So I think it's good to have that great circle of everyone who kind of cares and loves about you, but those who just support you no matter what, and
Yep.
those people who still love you but will push back as well.
Yeah, you absolutely need them. I also wonder about your professional philosophy, you know, how you approach your work and how you help the clients that you work with approach theirs.
Yeah, sure. So my background in internal operations, my goal is always to free up time and resources from CEOs, founders, owner operators, so they can focus on their core business. So, throughout my career and what I help my clients with today is really about how do you create systems, processes, procedures, utilize platform and tools so you can create the most efficient and effective operations. That's really my philosophy, my mindset going into helping my clients. And it really, dates back to when I was a W-2 employee as well. But I certainly bring that to all the clients I'm trying to help today.
So, who is your ideal client? Is it small to medium to large organizations or all of them?
Yes, so predominantly small to medium,
Yep.
probably definitely more on that smaller size. And the main thing for us that determines a good fit, more than are you $1 million budget or $5 million budget or $10 million budget. The
Yep.
thing for us is we need to work with clients that are on a growth trajectory. If you're someone who's just says, "Hey, we've been in business for 7 years, things are great, we're happy where they are," you're never going to hire us.
Yep.
You're just not going to. It's more that company that says, "Hey, we've been doing $2 million for the past 3 years. We want to hit 5 and 10 million. We know that something that we have to do to get there is a step out of this internal operations function, and we need your help to do it."
Yeah, I have so many questions lined up for you. You're a wealth of knowledge, that's for sure. And so, absolutely loving this call as my future business audience would be as well. But I'm really interested, John, to ask you about the gig economy and what part it should play in small businesses and startups.
Yeah, so I'll actually give you a little anecdotal recap of a call I had earlier today. This is again a small business, probably doing about $500,000 a year, and they were talking to me about needing a potential chief of staff, and then they were talking about needing someone to help them organize and launch their CRM system. And I said,
Yep.
"Hey, they'd used a consulting firm that didn't work for them, price wise, et cetera." I said, "Have you looked at Upwork?" Upwork is a great tool that I use, as part of the gig economy. And he said I hadn't. I said, well, there's your key, right? You can hone in on someone who specializes in that particular CRM. You can set the terms of how you're going to pay all, up front, milestones, whatever it may be, but you really need to utilize that. So you're getting your expertise you need for that one particular task without, overspending on other areas. So that's to me where the gig economy really comes into play. When you are a small organization, small company, and you need a particular skill set, but don't need them full time all the time, but just need them for that project. The gig economy is a great way to grow your business, get the expertise you need without having that part of your annual budget.
Yeah, I know there's certainly quite a lot of skill sets out there that are available. Now, tell me a little bit about how much technology should play as part of a startup or an existing business.
Yeah, it's impossible to talk about operations effectiveness and efficiency without talking about technology.
Yeah.
Everything from Zapier. It's that's something that I got into this year with my own business and our marketing functions was utilizing Zapier. And when something came in this form, it got sent to our CRM, which got sent to our email system, which got sent to our texting system. So if you really want to be a company that's growing and being efficient, being effective, you've got to find the right tools and technology. Now, the caveat for that is I have two, if you don't mind.
Yeah, yeah.
One is a lot of companies, small companies, they get caught up in some of the bigger buzz companies. I'm not going to mention any names, but they're enterprise systems.
Yep.
And people always ask, well, what do I think about this one or that? When I said it's great. The great thing about that system is that it will do everything you want to do. The bad thing about that system is it will do everything you want it to do. And the problem is that it costs money. Developer time, developer work to make it do exactly what you want to do.
Yep.
So I always do encourage smaller businesses, startups, to look at the things that are more cloud-based, out of the box, that don't quite have that customization aspects to it, but you can still utilize those systems. I know I said there was a second point here, and I'm drawing a blank here. Oh, I know what it was. The other aspect is companies also tend to chase, shiny objects.
Yes. Yep.
And what they end up doing is having a spider web of connectivity of all their different software products they're using because they didn't have a strategy going into it of what do we want to accomplish? What are the best tools to do that? And do these tools work together? Yeah. So when they don't work together, you end up having a lot of connectivity software in between your software, and it becomes a spider web. So, I always encourage people to really kind of lay out your strategy technology-wise of the various things that you need and trying to accomplish and make sure it all works together.
There seems to be a very big difference between needs and wants in terms of technology stack. And now it's important that obviously people reach out to you if you want to know more about that. And we're going to be sharing your information in a little while, John. Now, I'm wondering, which leads on from my question about technology, it's to do with automation and in particular AI. What's your perspective on these things?
Automation is something that I use all day, every day.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer, even in the internal operations functions where I really focus, the accounting system, the HR systems, all of those type of things, is having systems that really work well with one another and automate the process, right? Think about HR, 10 years ago, when you went and got applied to somewhere, you filled out your W-2 on paper, you did your I-9 on paper, you filled out your health benefits by paper, you did all this by paper. Now, and then they had to submit that to your both your broker and to your payroll company. Now it's all linked together. So you fill out a few forms online, it goes to all the places, it automatically gets mapped to your payroll. For any deductions, that sort of thing, reporting, but then it also goes to your broker. So again, that really kind of automates the process instead of doing that old school paper aspect. When it comes to AI, that's to me is a big buzzword today.
Yeah,
I think a lot of times when we're talking about AI, we're actually really talking about things, machine learning, machine intelligence that's been going on for decades.
Long time.
And the true AI is I think, far more advanced than what most people are really utilizing what they call AI. But again, it is the future, right? I know there's a lot of fear out there about AI replacing writers and all these type of things, but when it really comes down to it, nothing I don't think will ever truly replace that human mind aspect of all this stuff. But it's something that I read about and even write about a little bit from that perspective. But
Yep.
it's going to be very interesting to see where AI goes.
It's a watch this space thing, isn't it,
Yeah.
John? Now, what are some of the common operational mistakes made by founders and startups of small businesses?
Sure. So, most startups and founders, I think, tend to fall into one of three mistakes when they're first starting out. And one of them is that they convince themselves that they know internal operations, they understand the importance of internal operations, and so they're going to handle it themselves.
Yeah.
And it always falls to the wayside, as it should, because that founder and CEO, they should be focusing on their core business, their core mission, and not these administrative functions. And so it is natural that it falls aside. But then what happens is your internal operations doesn't get the attention it needs. Two other mistakes that tend to happen is the internal operations piece gets pushed to someone very, very junior who
Yep.
doesn't understand all the nuances of internal operations. Internal operations, for anyone who's smart and well-rounded, you can figure it out. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But it takes years upon years to really understand all the nuances of internal operations. And so if you have that, that executive assistant that just all the operation pieces get dumped to them without having that knowledge and that experience, things are going to be missed.
Bad news.
Another mistake that I see is when companies are starting out is if they don't want to do it themselves and don't want to trust a junior person, they tend to overpay. An example I'll get to that is an organization I came into. They literally were having their $600 an hour attorney handle their business insurance. So this attorney was billing $600 an hour to be the mediator between the go-between between the company and the insurance broker. The insurance broker is the one who has all the expertise in insurance, not the lawyer.
Yep.
But they're paying the lawyer to do that in between work. So that's the other piece I really see. So it's really important that you have someone early on who, whether consultant or in-house person, whatever it may be, that can be a part of your organization, understand your organization, what it's doing, where it's going, and helping make sure that you align your operations with your future goals.
Thank you for the feedback, John. I often hear from different people around the web and people that I work with, they say that for your business to scale, you need to be able to delegate the things that you know you do perfectly. How difficult is it for you when you're working with clients to help them let go of that need to do it themselves?
So I would say that throughout my time of being a consultant, I've had both extremes.
Yeah.
I've had the clients who just trust me, don't want to be in the weeds, don't care to be in the weeds, and like, it is yours. Let me know when there's a problem. Let me know when you need me, but
Get
it's
it
all
done.
yours.
Yep.
And the other side is that the people who just won't let go of anything. And again, the more people, so there's several aspects. One is, does the person who's micromanaging the operations, they truly know what they're doing? And two, you're just reducing all the efficiency. And really, you need to have that person who is operationally minded, efficiency minded, that can really help you make sure that the process procedures that need to be done are being done. The minute the CEO and founder is putting their finger on every single little thing, it never goes as well as it should. And if you
No.
just have that person you can trust to launch the systems and procedures, I promise you, your operations will be much better.
Let them do what they're good at and what they're there for. That's for sure and certain, John. Thank you again for that feedback. Now, I think for context, John, please share with us what Lateral Solutions actually focuses on for their clients. I know that you have a suite of services.
Yeah, so our kind of tagline is growth through operations. As I mentioned before, our goal is really to free up the time and resources from CEOs, owners, founders, and so they can focus on that core business. And we do that through a number of ways. I've recently made a pivot in our services we've always done majority of these services in some way, shape, or form, but just kind of package them differently. But
Yep.
now we're really focusing on recruitment, helping organizations hire operations managers to lighten the load. We are also launching a coaching mastermind program where we are providing education, training, as well as office hour support. I think that is critical. So it's not just teaching you about accounting and legal and all these things, but you have office hours where you can tap into myself and my team when you have direct questions, tactical questions that you need answered. And we actually have a link between these two, the recruitment and the mastermind, is that anyone we place for a client, that person gets enrolled in the mastermind for free. So we are staying with that person, helping train them, support them for 6 months after they step into that role to help make sure that they are a success. Beyond that, we also do I do one-on-one advising with CEOs and corporations and small businesses, and then assessments. We do assess operations and things like business identity, change capacity, and the last piece, which we still do, which I mentioned before, how we started, which is launching operations, and that can be a situation which has happened in the past where they said, "Hey, we just incorporated in Delaware. Now what?" And we get all the other pieces
All
tied
those.
together.
Yep.
Your accounting, your HR, your banking, your insurance, all that type of stuff. Or it can be a little more ad hoc. We want to change payroll companies. We need your help. We want
Yep.
to add a PAR system. We need your help. So we those are our core buckets of services.
That's great feedback. Now, I want to come back to recruitment in a moment, John, but I'd love to ask you, what's your experience with cross-departmental oversight, and what is that?
Yeah, so that certainly has been a part of my career, both as a W-2 employee and as a consultant. Is there's what tends to happen in most organizations is each department has a department head.
Yep.
That department head reaches up to the CEO or the owner, and they become siloed. So it's important that you have someone, that COO role, chief of staff role, whatever it may be, that is keeping the beat of each and every department to make sure that they don't become so siloed that you're missing the pieces where they can work together. Another big factor that happens when you have that siloed environment is you create this environment where only people in this vertical can make decisions about certain aspects. When a lot of times your marketing touches this, your accounting touches this, and so it's great to get feedback and insights from different perspectives within the organization
Mm.
about functions. And if you're siloed and don't have that cross departmental oversight, those type of valuable insights and information get missed.
So when you start working with a new company and you identify through, how do you identify? Do you do some sort of a step in audit where you assess where they're at the moment? And given what you've just talked about in terms of silos, what does that do for the culture and how do you correct it?
Sure. So on the aspect of when I first start working with an organization, occasionally they'll come to me and say, "Hey, we have this problem or we need this," and it's very direct.
Yep.
That's few and far between. Majority of the time, they're coming to me and saying, "We know this is not working correct. We know there's a better way. We just don't know what it is." And so, yes, I come in, I'll do an operational assessment, understand where they are. Again, sometimes it's the tactical operational assessments of their HR pieces, their accounting pieces, but sometimes it's just getting to understand the organization, the flow of the organization, and saying, "Hey, look, this is where you need to make some decisions." And to your question about the siloed aspects in the culture. That's something that I'm very, very passionate about is creating a culture where people can ask why. And I believe it's something that you know everybody, no matter where they are in the organization, no matter what level they are, should be able to ask questions, point out areas where there is inefficiency, ineffectiveness. If you really want your organization to grow, you really have to create that environment to where you're willing to listen to a variety of different people from a variety of different perspectives. Kind of talked about earlier about life, right? It also
Yeah, yeah.
exists in organizations that you have to. Everyone in the organization has a different perspective of why something is working and not working, and it's very vital that you create that culture that allows that feedback and that insight, no matter where they are in the organization and what level.
This is a wonderful call. Really enjoying it, John. Thank you so very much. Now, I just want to swing back into the recruitment question because I know that a lot of people that I work with, they wish that they could recruit first time, right time, every time, but that doesn't seem to be possible. And I know that you've dovetailed it in with your mastermind, but where is the focus really needing to be for an organization who maybe has a need to do maybe seasonal recruitment?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things I think people tend to make mistakes when it comes to recruitment.
Yep.
I am a big believer in hire slow, fire quick.
Yep.
Just some regard, right? I'm not a big believer in creating this cutthroat environment where you get one chance and you're out. But there is some logic behind that where you need to take your time to make sure you understand the role that you need, understand the right person needed to fill that role, and make sure you're finding them. So that aspect I agree with. If people are not just aren't cutting it or be given a couple chances, yes, I do believe you have to fire fairly quickly.
Cut ties
But
pretty easy.
yeah, but and then another big aspect of that is, people are always talking about A players, and I think that especially in young organizations, startup-y type organizations, where they're like, we need those go-getter people. Now, here's the problem that happens every time: you build a team of nothing but A players who would advance their career as fast as possible. You are going to blow your budget out of the water because all of them are going to want raises after 2 weeks, after
Yep.
2 months.
Yep.
And if you don't do that, they're going to go find someone who will.
See you later.
So instead of focusing on A players, the key for me is focusing on an A team. Not every department, every role has to be that go-getter, take the bull by the horns type person. Some roles, you just need that steady person who is good at their job, works hard, keeps their head down, keeps a positive culture and environment in the workplace. So really focus on having an A team versus focusing on making sure everyone is an A player. And
Yep.
by A player, I really mean kind of the A personality. It's not that you should always look for people who are good at their jobs. I don't mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
but I think most people, when they think about A player, they think that type A personality, and that's what I'm trying to get people to avoid.
Horses for courses, isn't it? Now,
Yeah.
we talked a lot about, being able to observe effectiveness in the workplace, but how do you actually measure it? How do you know when things are going from, point A where you started to, do you have some sort of a scorecard to keep a track of how they're improving?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes organizations get caught up into a specific type of scorecard,
Yep.
dashboards, etc. For me, what system you use is a little irrelevant, because what really matters is, whatever your system you're using or not using a particular system, are you setting the KPIs, the key
Yep.
performance indicators? Are you setting your goals, short term and long term? Are you setting the indicators that show, is every person doing what they need to do to reach those goals? And here's the key part that a lot of organizations miss. A lot of them may do that up front, but if you don't hold people accountable, it's all for nothing. And that is the piece that gets missed the most often, is that if you're not holding people accountable, you just wasted all those hours, all that time to set all this up. So that's the key piece: is you got to set your goals, set your key performance indicators, but then at the end of the day, hold people accountable and make sure they're reaching those goals and those indicators.
Great feedback. Once again, I wonder, you often hear the analogy that a ship without a rudder is going nowhere. In particular, I wonder how important it is for you to work directly with the leaders of the organization to make sure you're going in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, that's vitally important. And I am a big believer in open and honest, transparent communication.
Yeah.
I'm not that old school leader who, this is what I say, and so go out and do it.
Do it. Yep.
Right. I'm a big believer that for an organization to truly function as well as it can and should, um, the leaders really have to showcase and communicate the vision for the organization. We talked about, key performance indicators and goals, which are a little more short term, but I think a big thing that is also missed is talking about the vision. Where do I want this company or organization to go for the future? And if you can communicate that to your staff, while they're setting their goals and working through the workflow, they can keep their eye of like, look, I just realized that although we're trying to reach here right now, our
Yep.
ultimate goal is here. So if they know that, they may be able to find some ways to fine tune what they're doing, switch what they're doing, so they can leap over that initial goal and get far closer to that end goal, that vision goal, if you will. So I really think it's important that communication is very open and honest about where we're going, what we want to do, what kind of culture we're trying to build here. Because if you don't communicate, um, the type of culture that you want to have, one will form regardless, and it
Yep.
should be one you don't want. So kind of back to your question here is, yes, I mean, it's vitally important that when I'm working with an organization, that I have some communication with the CEO or the top executives, even if my person is maybe in the middle. It's vitally important that they're aware of what we're working on and what my strategy is, and me understanding where they want to go.
These conversations never fail to impress me and leave me thinking, what can I do better in my organization? I'm looking forward to sharing how people can work with you in a moment. But I often ask this question for people who give speaking and do keynotes. How does it make you feel getting up in front of an audience and giving a talk? Do you thrive in that environment?
Yeah, it's absolutely great, and it's something that the last year I've really been focusing on this repositioning my business. But once that's up and running, I really want to spend some more time speaking more and doing more business conferences. But it's great to be able to take the knowledge that I've gathered over my 17-year career, and boil that down to sometimes it's a 45-minute talk, sometimes it's a 2.5 hour training, but it's really exciting to take all of that, taking what I do, repackaging it for the audience, and really being able to provide some value to them that they can take home and really change their organizations and advance their careers.
As we move into the pointy end of the call, John, I'd love to talk a little bit about three different areas of your business. First of all, BizOps Masters. What's that about?
So that's the coaching mastermind that I
Oh,
mentioned
right.
earlier.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's it's really got a couple components. It's going to follow a typical coaching group coaching mastermind program where it's weekly Zoom calls, topical, and all the internal operational topics. We're going to bring in guest speakers, accountants, lawyers, insurance brokers, those subject matter experts that can really go a little more in depth with each
Go
of these
deep.
topics. And
Yeah.
then what's really going to separate us from other masterminds, and this is something I'm not really aware of anything other masterminds that are doing this, but we're going to have office hours that really is going to allow the members of the mastermind to call in and ask questions. So much operational time is wasted by trial and error in research. So
Yeah.
if you have myself, who's experienced COO and VP of operations consultant, as well as my staff who are experienced in accounting and HR, if you can, instead of spending hours researching, you can just schedule a time with us for 15 minutes, saying, "Hey, we decided we got to change payroll companies. What's your thoughts?" And
Get
I
it
can
out
I
there.
can I can spit off 5 to 10 payroll companies I have direct experience with, pros and cons. Can lay that
Yeah.
out for you and say, look, I would focus on depending on what your issues are, I would focus on these areas. So I think that's going to be a huge part of value of the mastermind, and we're launching our next cohort this January.
Great. Now on to Start Ops. That's another arm of the business. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So when I was talking earlier about launching operations, that's what that piece is, and I
Right.
coined the phrase startups. So literally the when I first started consulting, as I mentioned, I had a former boss that came to me and said, "Hey, I'm actually starting a for-profit and a nonprofit, and we need you to do what you did with us, as VP of operations, and launch
Yep.
all these aspects." And so, one of them really came to me and said, "We've incorporated in Delaware. We are about to get some funding from investors. We need to show them we're a real company, so we need to get all this set up now." And we set up their banking, their EIN, their benefits and payroll, all of these things within 30 days. It was the fastest I'd ever done it because they were motivated in getting it done. So we really can just, if you're a startup that's just incorporated, or you're maybe in overseas and you want to create a U.S. subsidiary, you can say, "Hey, John, this is what we need. We can do all that." If you're already functioning and there's a parts of those pieces that you just want to change, we can jump in and do that as well.
You know what? I always ask this. I wonder, how does it make you feel when you see businesses that you work with in a transformational phase and, there's smiles on people's faces and they're getting the results? How does that make you feel?
Great. And it really, I joked around earlier about consulting, but it really kind of fits my personality because I am very much a creation, change type oriented person versus ongoing maintenance. When it
Yep.
comes to ongoing maintenance, I tend to get bored. I don't want to do the same things over and over again. So be able to play this role of creating these organizations and adding value and seeing them take off. And of course, working in the startup world, some of my clients take off, some don't. But it's an important part of the entrepreneurial process and startup process. So it really, I couldn't be more excited and happy with what I do and seeing the impact I have in these organizations and the people that I work with.
Well, I can tell that because you light up. As soon as I asked you that question, you certainly did. And there's lots of entrepreneurs and existing business owners who are listening into this call today. I'm pretty sure and certain of that, John, they'll be wanting to reach out to you. So it leads me to my next question. What's the process to find you and work with you? What do you have an onboarding process?
Yeah, so the best thing to do is reach out to us through the website, www.think-lateral.com. And from there, our email is on there. There's a contact form on there. Obviously, we have a variety of different products and services that we offer. So the first thing to do is reach out, let us know, what it is that you're looking for. And it's absolutely okay to reach out to us and say, we know we need something, but we don't know what it is. That is
Yes.
seriously 60 to 75% of my calls start that way. So we do an onboarding, we do an initial call with you,
Yep.
understand the needs of your organization, explain in more detail what we do, what pricing is like for initial call. And then from there, if we need to do a deeper dive where we tackle a little bit of your operational problems, again, this is all free. This is all free consult at the beginning. We can kind of begin to understand your organization a little bit more and say, like, this is the direction you need to go. Here's our proposal for that.
Well, there you go. Anybody who's listening to this call today, that website is think-lateral.com. I'll make it easy for you. There'll be a link below this call. No matter where you see it, you'll be able to just click through to John and his wonderful team and actually go just check out the website. I know there's a great deal of excellent information awaiting you there. And with that all being said, John, great call. Thank you so very much for joining me on the My Future Business Show today.
Thank you for having me.